Welcome to the Lightforge. This is Adwikta.
This is Merps. All right. This is the week before BlizzCon, right?
This is the week before BlizzCon.
Yeah. So next week, BlizzCon starts on Friday. So we are doing this exactly 1 week before BlizzCon. If you guys don't know, we're recording this on Friday. So if the world ends either on Saturday or Sunday, and you're wondering why we're not talking about it, that's why.
Because
Because we are
we
recording
don't
this on the
know that the
25th.
world has ended.
Yes. So zombie apocalypse aside, I don't think we're gonna get any huge news between now and I don't know Monday. Just because Blizzard never really, does anything to sort of take away its own thunder. I'm pretty sure whatever announcements there are, whether it's new expansion or whether it's I don't know a new play mode, tournament mode, hopefully, they won't announce
yeah,
it
yeah,
until
tournament mode. That's what's
I know.
happening. Uh
I
huh.
know. But look, even if there was something big on the horizon, we would not know about it until the official announcement next week. Is it Friday or Saturday that they announce it? It's like opening thing, right?
It's not next week. It's the week after next week. I thght.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
So, it's right. It's on like the 7th, right? Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it's on like Halloween. Um, so BlizzCon is the next big news piece. We're going to talk about that now rather than next
No, no,
week.
no.
What
It
it is?
is actually next week. It starts on Friday, November 1st.
Oh, okay. So I'm wrong. It starts on November 1st then.
This is what you get for introducing doubt. I was certain, and then you were like, no, and
Oh
you
wow,
introduced
that's
doubt.
huge then. That's huge because that's when the event ends, right? That's when the arena event ends. So whatever they announce, because sometimes they do this, right? They make an announcement, then all of a sudden it's already in the game. They could do that next Friday, because kind of suspiciously and kind of not because they don't communicate all that much in the past few months. Blizzard has not really told us what's going on in the arena next week.
Yeah,
They've said that there's not going to be a rotation happening, which means the same cards are going to be in the arena. So that much is true. I think if arena is following the same rules as standard, stuff like rag and whatever are leaving, right? Those are or are
I'm
they
not
staying?
sure. I don't know actually.
Okay. Well, regardless, they're legendaries and we don't really care about them. The important thing that's changing is dual classes definitely is going away. That is an event
Yes.
that's not going to survive the end of Halloween. And the big question, well, okay, an assumption we can make, and this is just an assumption, we don't have any confirmation on it, is that the bucket system is still not coming back yet. They haven't ruled out bringing the bucket system back, but I highly doubt it's going to come back next week. Um, so that means we're going to go into a non dual class arena version of the current meta with potentially the same
Yikes.
offering rates and potentially not the same offering rates when it comes to class cards. Because right now, class cards are being offered 3 times as much as non class cards. And other than that, the only thing screwing around with your like offering rates is like rarity of cards. So we're in a pretty normal situation compared to a pretty basic situation compared to all the buckets and all the weird like micro adjusts and stuff like that. I don't know. Here's my question to you, Merps. Before we get to the BlizzCon stuff, let's talk about this meta, right? This meta that's going to happen. That's going to happen next week.
Okay. So when you
What
say this meta, you mean the
I
upcoming,
mean the next
not
meta, not
this.
actually this meta.
Okay,
Clearly,
okay.
you've learned not to take my words for what they actually mean.
I
Um,
know with you, they never. Anyways, please go on.
okay, so what would you like to see in the next meta in terms of offering rates? Assuming they're going to take dual class arenas away, assuming they're not going to do any rotations, I think those are pretty good assumptions. What would you like to see? Do you want to see the 3x stay around? Do you want the spell bonus back, where spells and minions are treated differently? Do you want a smaller bonus? Do you want a larger bonus? What about the legendaries that has been increased since September at least, but we don't know if that's permanent either.
what would I like to see? So this is what I would do, not what I think is going to happen,
Okay.
right?
What would you do? What would you think will make the arena the best?
Okay, so with us, we've always talked about simplicity as well, right? So whenever I look at something like this, first of all, I ask myself the simple question: can we get away with doing absolutely nothing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the answer to that is probably no, because class identity is already pretty much gone. We talked about this, for quite a while. So I think you do need to push a little bit of the class cards. If not to really differentiate the classes, and because we talked about it, classes are fairly homogenous, even if you put a lot of class cards into it. But people just want to play with class cards. They don't want a constant zombie chow, fungal mancer sort of deck,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like they don't want every single deck. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. It's like zombie chow fungal mancer with a ping or zombie chow fungal mancer with a heal. Anyways, it's all the same. So what I would like to do, because if I'm just looking at the game at a base level, I'm thinking, all right, well, I can't just let it sit with no bonus. So how would I increase it? And I think I would just be okay with a flat increase, however much it is, if we want it to be 2x, 3x, whatever, just to the class cards. I wouldn't differentiate between spells and minions because I think that just gets pretty messy. And we've talked about this before as well. There's not that much difference between minions and spells. When you look at it, a lot of minions are actually just spells, and a lot of spells actually just summon minions. So I would think that the simplest solution, while still giving people a little bit of what they want, not really giving back class identity because that doesn't really exist for
You
some
can't
classes
get class
anymore.
identity without the basic cards coming back. You can't,
Yeah, exactly.
because that's what the
But
class identity is.
giving them a little bit of flavor and sort of, more importantly, if you increase the class cards, you necessarily increase the expectations of what a class will have. So when you're facing a shaman, even though, let's say this, if you're facing like a druid and they're missing their sort of class identity that they had before, you still know, all right, I have to play around Mark of Yasharaj, I have to play around, this and that. So it does increase the amount of things you have to think about, the amount of things you have to play against. It increases the expectations, and I think that's really important. That was one of those things that about a month ago, not a month ago, but like a few weeks ago when all this started, you didn't play around anything, right? You didn't play around a single thing, and a lot of people got really bored by it. So you need these expectations in order to challenge your mind and also make it more fun. So that's what I would do: a plain 2x, 3x, whatever x increase to class cards, to make it simple, but also give people some variety and expectations.
Okay, so if you remember, that's what the arena was like back in Classic, right? It was a flat 2x modifier to class cards. And, it worked pretty well. No one was really complaining about it too much. Now we have 3x, which is what you see in the current meta. I think in the current meta, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm pretty confident that on average, I'll get somewhere around like one steed offered to me if I select half a paladin, right? That feels about like what you see. And every paladin, and assuming everyone always takes steed whenever it's offered because it's one of the best cards. Like there's only like a couple cards maybe that you would take over a steed. That's rare. Like you have like actually no, there isn't. I don't think there's muster for battle maybe, and I think that's it. Um, uh,
Yeah, and the chances of those two going heads up against each other are so rare.
Yeah, because there's no more bucket system. So I think also from what you see in the meta, there's just also approximately one steed per paladin deck, and you see it sometimes, and the other times you don't get far enough into the game, and it's in like the second half of the guy's deck. Um, if you keep so I think using that as a bar, if you keep 3x offering rate, what you'll see is paladins will have two steeds, right?
Yep.
If they always take a steed whenever it comes up, and that feels okay. That's about like the high end of when you want how often you want to see your top cards. Um, and that's because the old system would give a card like Steed a 200 like 2.25x rather than 3x. But the old system, like the bucket system, would also give preferential treatment to better cards by penalizing the offering rates of cards in the 6th and 7th buckets, like in the bottom two buckets. So with that gone, you just have like a little bit more leeway to increase your general class offering rates. Anyway, my point is, I think if we're, I agree with you, Merps, on that we don't need anything like too fancy. This is all fine. But I do think that 3x is probably okay as it is. I don't think we really need to
Yeah.
go back to 2x. Um, like it just the arena feels pretty good right now. Like I've actually been struck by how good the arena felt when the difference was just increasing class cards by 3x, right? Because it felt terrible when class cards were at 1x offering rate. And then they changed it to 3x offering rate without changing anything else. And all of a sudden, you had strategy again. All of a sudden, things were more predictable again. All of a sudden, it mattered which classes you picked besides having a hero power. And once you get rid of dual classes, you're just going to have it doubled, right? Your class identity, whatever identity it happens to be. And for example, Paladin right now has a really freaking weird identity if you don't put it with anyone else. It'll double and that'll feel good. So I don't think you need to touch anything. Like I think if I were Blizzard, I would just say, okay, dual class arena's going away. Keep the rest the way they are. And I include with that the legendary rate. Right now, I think you average one legendary per deck, and that's fine. It's higher than what we're used to seeing, but I haven't felt like, oh no, legendaries are dominating all of my games or anything. Definitely, they have more of an impact, especially without the bucket system, which means you can't build synergies as well. Like the legendaries are having a bit more of an outsized impact than they used to have, but they used to have like nearly no impact in the arena.
Yeah.
Like how many times? Think back on the first half of the year, right? Think about how many times you're like, oh, I lost due to a legendary. Like one out of every like 20 losses, 10 losses, maybe one out of every 10 losses, and
Right.
like that's fine. One out of every 10 losses, you want to keep that number pretty low. But let's say it's now one out of every 20, one out of every 5 losses, or one out of every 4 losses was due to a legendary. That's not bad either. Like I wouldn't mind
No.
that. And I think that's where we're
Also,
at right
I
now.
want to point this out to people. It's not every when we say 1 out of every 20, we mean 1 out of every 20 games. Not that you lost and you saw it in legendary. It's the legendary actually caused you to lose,
Mm-hmm.
like significantly impacted your win percent chance.
Like was not the same effect as a fireball.
Yeah, yeah. So essentially, if it was a 50-50 game, they dropped a legendary, and right after they dropped a legendary, their win rate went up to like 85,
Yeah.
90% chance. Then that's what we mean. If they were 95% chance to win the game, and then they just dropped, like a random Lich King way back when or whatever, to raise it to 99%, that doesn't count, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't really count. Anyways, just wanted to define
Yeah.
that because
Because
people are like, wait, I see legendaries a lot more often. It's like, yeah, but we're talking about it when it actually matters.
yeah, because legendaries are kind of a stand-in for like cards with potentially really high swing, right? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if they didn't have potentially much higher swings than almost all of the non-legendary cards, at least a significant percentage of legendaries have that ability, then one, they wouldn't feel so legendary, and two, we wouldn't worry about them. They wouldn't be in a separate category. But a lot of legendaries are like they have the effect of something like Defile, even if they're not anywhere near as good as Defile, right? Like that's how much they can swing the board. Um, like I don't think we rate Ysera like super high or anything. Like we definitely rate Fireballs above Ysera, but Ysera can win you a game. In ways a Fireball usually doesn't.
Yep.
And those ways that it wins you a game is usually outside of the skill of either player. So it's that kind of legendary mix. But anyway, I think our point is that the meta is actually in a good state right now, given what Blizzard can do. Right, like there's nothing simple I think that they can do that will make the meta better. So like, don't mess with it. Don't mess with the offering rates. Collect data. Collect it really really quickly once once the new meta's in without the dual classes, and then do a micro adjust, right? They said that micro adjusts are going to be much easier without the bucket system. Well, you didn't really get a chance to see it because we were in dual class arena, and one, there wasn't that big of a disparity between classes and their data, I'm sure, and two, it's kind of a fun event. No one really cared too much about class parity. But now we're getting back to what is a more normal meta. Still no basic or classic cards, but it's like an approximation of a meta. And they can, right? If they can do it, like give the meta 3 days, make a micro adjust. Like just pushing a button, right? It can't be that hard. There's not even this like desync between two different systems trying to work with each other.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, we'll see. Like I believe that what we're talking about right now is going to happen.
Be the reality in a week.
Yeah, just because it's kind of the it's kind of the easiest thing for them to do. And when I say this, I mean single classes, sort of, no real huge adjustments to any of this stuff. Because I don't think Blizzard right now just has the resources to come up with something super creative. And I was gonna say no offense, but this might offend. Blizzard just doesn't spend energy on this stuff. I mean, they don't spend energy on not just arena, but like with Hearthstone, it's really about upkeep at this point, and I don't think that's. I mean, I think everyone would kind of agree.
I
Like they
think
haven't.
something's in the pipeline for next year at some point. They have to.
Maybe
They're not like going to
totally.
totally give up on the game with that many players.
I mean, here's the thing, right? And I don't know if you were gonna talk about this, but so this is actually my question from the goat. I'm gonna sneak it in a little bit right now. My question from the goat was actually going to be sort of, what are your thoughts on potentially increasing competition for Blizzard from Riot? Right,
Mm.
Riot actually just came out, but I was gonna say that I really am cheering on Legends of Runeterra. Not because I really like the game. I honestly haven't even tried it, but I'm like, man, maybe this will light a fire under Blizzard's ass.
The way
Maybe
MTGA lit a fire under Blizzard's ass.
I don't think it's exactly the same. And I,
What's different between this and MTGA?
MTGA is just more serious. It's like more M- MTG is almost its own sort of system in a way. It's got its own lore. It's got its own sort of like history to it. The amount of depth in there is insane. Like when I was reading about MTGA, they literally got like rocket scientists to come in to be able to process all the things that are happening with the game, because Magic, with all the instances, with all the rules, with all the wacky, crazy kind of OTK, like unlimited combos there. It really is just a different beast. And I see it's like for Hearthstone, that's a lot more similar. It's taking a lot of the core kind of like foundational structure from MTG, just like all of these games are. But Hearthstone is definitely a lot closer to stuff like Duelist, to stuff like Shadowverse, than something like MTGA or MTG period. And what I
Mm.
see in Legends of Runeterra doing is, even though the turn mechanics are a little bit different, I see it as a lot closer to Hearthstone, as an easily accessible game that you don't need to sort of memorize this entire rule book or concoct all of these different things with wacky effects. It's a more simplified kind of, I can pick it up, easy to pick up, difficult to master, but really satisfying kind of game like that. So yes, in a way, MTGA is competition for Hearthstone, but I don't think Hearthstone and Blizzard have really looked at it and been like, oh man, we're feeling the heat from MTGA. I think they're just like, okay, this is sort of tangential to what we're doing, and certainly we have a lot of respect for them because they were the godfather of card games. But I don't think that their core audience sees these two as like, okay, it's either one or the other. Um, but with Legends of Runeterra, I think this is one of those games in which, if it is successful, I think Blizzard and the Hearthstone team can look at it and be like, "Yikes! This is, this is a obviously a huge time game developer company, and they, with the game that they've created, from what I've seen so far, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, this is something that is hits really close to home for us in terms of the accessibility, in terms of even just the animation, and in terms of kind of the casual fun factor that it represents."
Yeah. I have huge doubts that any of this is going to matter when it comes to what Blizzard does. Fires do not get lit. Think about any other game Blizzard's created. When has anyone ever lit a fire under any Blizzard's team's ass and then they got better? Like,
Yeah.
maybe Diablo 3 with Path of Exile? Maybe that's like the closest it gets. And that's really more because like Diablo 3 just did a whole directional change, right? Like they had a vision, they didn't like the vision after like half a year and they just scrapped it all and put in a whole
Well,
new vision.
yeah, I mean, they wholesale changed it. They fired Jay Wilson.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
Yeah, yeah.
kind of different. So yeah, kind of that's lighting a fire under their ass, I guess. But not, that's more like a giant philosophical change. Like if that happens in Hearthstone, I wouldn't say like, oh, another game caused it necessarily. That's more than just like, hey, look, it's not working.
Here's the thing, though. It's like, I don't think anyone had like, I don't think Blizzard has actually ever been pushed on kind of any of their games. You mentioned Path of Exile. That's still sort of just a niche, uh,
Yeah.
kind of like. I don't want to insult Path of Exile by saying this, but it's
No, it is. It's like for the more hardcore people
yeah,
who
yeah.
like
It's
care about
not
the stuff that Path of Exile is really good at.
right. So Blizzard has always come in, and what they do is they refine and dominate certain genres,
And
right?
they
It's
always
like
come out with a simpler version of whatever the hell the genre is. Like
right,
if
a
they
simpler
establish the genre, it's still simpler than like anything that's done before, right? It's all about
right.
polish and simplicity and fun. They strip away the things that they view as like getting in the way of the fun, and they take the core fun concept of whatever the genre is, and then like push on that.
But I don't think for any of their IPs, or any three of their IPs, I'm not even gonna count Overwatch because that's just new.
Yeah,
Like
that's too
Overwatch
new.
is actually that's pretty new.
Yeah,
But for StarCraft, for Diablo, and for Hearthstone, like they haven't really been pushed with any of these by a big game company. It's all of these sort of companies taking a chunk here, a chunk there, sort of scrapping out little victories against them. But what I'm hoping is, I mean, with Riot, like holy crap, and their huge reveal. By the way, if you guys don't know, Riot revealed that they're working on like a bazillion games for their 10th anniversary, and they're going to take over the world. And who knows if that will actually
Riot,
happen?
by the way, controlled by the People's Republic of China.
Yes.
Actually
Uh,
controlled, not like Blizzard controlled.
I know, I know. So for any of you guys who want to fight the power or whatever,
This is not the way to do
go find another
it.
game.
But
But
yeah, like okay, so it's at a bigger scale. They're probably better at doing what they do than a lot of Blizzard's previous competitors. Um, but I don't know. Like part of it is not just what kind of competition they face; it's how Blizzard is capable of reacting to stuff. Like, does Blizzard seem like a nimble reactive company to you? Like, you can't just become a nimble reactive company, you know? Like, if you're building a company or doing management or whatever, like imagine you're like a consultant, right? And you're going in and you're telling me, you've been hired, you're telling people what's wrong, you identify these inefficiencies. At the end of the day, some companies, I would say a large percentage of these companies that have never been challenged before just don't have the structural or cultural or any capability to make nimble changes. Their changes come huge and their changes take time and they go into a little recovery period before they could come out the other end, assuming they do come out the other end. And that's assuming it. So it doesn't feel like like if you're in the company or you're looking at what the company's doing, it doesn't feel like, oh, the fire is lit under their ass and they're just gonna do a better job or do like new whatever stuff. It feels like they're breaking the company completely apart and then like piecing together some new stuff mixed with some old stuff. Like that's what happens to companies, or they just don't do anything and they don't listen to the consultant, or they implement the like small like portions of the efficiency things and keep their culture and keep what they've been doing that was working so long. But they don't become nimble. You can't just become nimble. And Blizzard, of all the companies that, just from how we see their operations going, and we don't have like inside information on this or anything by a long shot, but just having played Blizzard games for so long and seeing how they do things, doesn't feel like a company that, even if they wanted to react, that they can with any amount of speed or gracefulness or skill.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, but necessity does strange things to people and to companies, right? This is why I'm really rooting for the success of Legends of Runeterra.
Hmm.
I've looked at the game. It's just not for me, I don't think. But I am really hoping that it gets an audience. I'm really hoping that a lot of people pick it up, that they like it, because competition is good. True competition will lead to better innovation. And I think, like if there is actual competition, then Blizzard actually has to fight to get money from people. And something might happen. It's really just the last ditch hope I have. I totally agree. If we're looking at the history of what Blizzard has done or really has not done, they are not a nimble company. And you can say that, yeah, we're saying that that's a negative, but that's not necessarily the case,
No,
right?
no,
Because
because a lot of what makes them strong is that they have a good culture and that they are able to produce these hits after hits, right? Like, yeah, they have massive
right,
failures, but they also have a lot of massive hits, and their hits hit the biggest, right? Like, their
yeah,
hits isn't like Hero of the Storm. Yeah, we got a game with a lot of people that's playing it. Their hits are like Overwatch, like Hearthstone.
yeah. I mean, we're talking about like Diablo 3 being one of their failures as well, even
Right.
though I mean, it was like one of the most purchased games of all
Yeah,
time. If
like,
not, I think
look,
it was the most purchased game of all
yeah, it was.
time.
It broke all the records in the beginning.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
broke
it
all
was
the
the best
records.
game ever for like a couple weeks, right? And then it was like, oh no, you guys did not think this through in the right way. Um,
Yeah.
but
So
it's
even their
not like, yeah,
failures,
their
but
failures aren't like Artifact, right? That's like the go to pointer for like something that failed very recently. So yeah, no, I mean, you guys know we're actually fans of Blizzard. When if you listen to the last podcast, what we were talking about very excitedly was Diablo 2, literally another Blizzard game. We played pretty much every Blizzard game that they've released. At least for me, I played every one that's outside of the WoW universe, except for Hearthstone. It's always odd to me that Hearthstone's the game that we're like playing for like this long time. And we made a stream out of because it's the only game in the Warcraft universe that I've ever played, and I have played every game outside of the Warcraft universe that Blizzard has published.
yeah, I've never played any of the Warcraft games either. I've watched YouTube videos on the lore. That's the only
Yeah. But
reason
I
I
only did
know.
that after playing Hearthstone, and I'm like, what am
Yeah.
I playing? Like, who the hell is Sylvanas? Um, but yeah, I feel like I should put in a little promo here for Gods Unchained because that's the game I put in about 1,000 hours of work on it. I'm no longer like actively working on the game. I think I'll be back. I'm pretty sure I'll be back when EXP1 gets into a certain state on a consulting basis. But now they're all built up like a real game company with Chris Clay and all that, and we've transitioned from using me from leaning on me for way too much stuff to a better operation. But anyway, their last like sales I think is happening in a couple days, and they announced a tournament with like Trump and everybody. So they're starting to kick into gear as well, which is also awful timing. I don't know if they knew what Riot was gonna do. I'm guessing not, because otherwise this would be the most terrible timing to pick to like make a push for for a TCG card game. But well, check it out if you have it. Gods Unchained, you can download it for free. And yeah, it's currently the number 3 most played trading card game in at least like the Western world. Like it's beat out.
Wow.
Like yeah, it's like it goes MTG Hearthstone, right, or Hearthstone MTG, and then Gods Unchained, which is kind of crazy to me. But I mean, it's a huge drop, right? It's not like it's anywhere near Hearthstone or Magic numbers. But it's definitely and it's been like that for I think like 2 months at least, maybe even 3 months. It's been like that for a while. Uh,
Hmm.
just people don't know about it because the gap between number 2 and number 3 is so huge. But yeah, it's TCG based off Hearthstone. I made so many design decisions on how the game looks fundamentally, and I'm pretty sure right now the majority, at least, probably the vast majority of cards are how I designed them mechanically, and the numbers are even the same. So it's a peek into how I would design a Hearthstone successor kind of deal. And yeah. But yeah, one of the things I found really interesting when we were talking about like how to light a fire under Blizzard's ass is I read some of the reviews on Gods Unchained from the people who went there from Hearthstone, right after
Hmm.
the whole Blitzchung thing blew up. And there was a lot of reviews that were just like, oh, the polish is just not there. Like it feels so weird playing this game. Like it seems fine, but it's like I'm just so used to how much like how Hearthstone is Hearthstone. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I've seen this game through like every version from like the barely functional one that existed like a year ago that was only like internally shown to like investors to like this version. And this version is great. Like playing this version, I feel like totally like in it, right? Like and people are still having that reaction because that was the reaction I had when I played earlier versions of it. I'm like, oh no, I'm not recommending anyone play this game yet because it's going to feel so awful coming from Hearthstone. But that's the edge that Blizzard has, right? And maybe Riot has the quality to like reproduce that exact kind of feeling, that exact kind of like level of polish. But when you're like an indie developer, right, like releasing your, whether first game, second game, or whatever, it just it takes more time to get to that level of polish, and it takes more resources, and you may not be there. You probably are going to launch a game before you get to that level of polish.
Hmm.
Um, so, like MTGA, I think doesn't even have that level of polish. But I didn't think they tried to go for that level of polish. They went from a different direction because they're like an actual card game with like physical cards. So they wanted to like preserve that, and so they're like, we don't need that. Because if you look at MTGA, like I don't know how many people listening to us have played MTGA, but like the animations are crap. Like the actual card animations of like when you play a card and like a special effect comes out, like that's so low quality. The cards themselves move really smoothly, everything looks really nice. They flip around, they sparkle, they do things. But like as cards, whenever it turns from a card to a video game, it like it's so not Hearthstone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. I know what you're talking about. Um, you got to cut corners somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely a lot more interactions possible, just because of the rules themselves in MTGA. So I totally understand that.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we don't know what's going on in BlizzCon. We're not going to be at BlizzCon this year, and we weren't for like the last. I think we were last there like 4 years ago or something. It's been a while. When we were last there, I was playing Overwatch like pretty dedicatedly, like in my spare time. It's been a long time since then. I don't even know like I think the last like 2 or 3 like characters released in Overwatch. Um, but yeah, tune in to BlizzCon next Friday. I'm sure there will be news related to Hearthstone of some sort, if only just to announce the next expansion, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but hopefully more. We'll see. And also, me and Merps, if you didn't listen to the last podcast, you could listen to us nerd out for half an hour in the last podcast on the last question from the GOAT on the possibility of an announcement for Diablo 2 Enhanced Edition. And Diablo 4 as well, but I feel like Diablo 4 is far along, even like far away, even if they do announce it. It'll be like a meaningless announcement, right? Like, here's a game. It won't be ready next year. Good luck.
I
Um,
know.
Okay, so let's bring it back. We've been very theoretical in this episode, mostly because we're currently in an event meta, and the meta's not going to matter in a week, and just it's whatever, right? I feel just talking more about feelings and Hearthstone in general, like I feel like Arena right now is caught in such a limbo-y weird place. Because if you ask me now, how is Arena? I would say it's fine. It's totally Arena. Like, it's the Arena I fell in love with. It is somewhat improved from that, but not too significantly. And it's fine. But at the same time, if you're a longtime Arena player, you can see that Blizzard's going backwards. They're literally getting rid of the bucket system. They literally have admitted now that one, buckets were a failure. Before that, the last thing they tried before buckets was synergy picks. That was a failure. So they've just been trying these things that they ultimately decided were failures, whether because it was poorly implemented, like both synergy picks and the bucket systems, or because just the idea had some issues. They even walked back now the spell bonus that they added. Right? They initially changed spell bonus from 100% to 50%. And now spell bonus doesn't even exist at all. So we're like way back. So they've even cut that out. So the only thing left from like stuff they've been tweaking with in the arena now, I think, is like the micro adjust. And that's not even in the arena right now, as far as I know, because we're in a dual class arena system. But presumably they'll be back once this next meta hits for the month of November. So if you're a longtime arena player, you're like, what's happening? Right? We're breaking arena down. We're actually breaking arena almost perfectly back down to where it was 5 years ago when Blizzard did nothing for the arena. Like, literally at that point, they had not touched the arena since release. And what's happening? Right? No plans, no announcements yet, no communication. Not sure if they have a plan or if like it's in such early stages they don't want to tell anyone. But usually a company, especially a big company like Blizzard that has a lot of resources and can do a lot of things, you don't break something down until you have a plan for how to build it back up. Because if you don't care about it at all, then you just leave it where the hell it is, right? You don't like spend the effort to break it down.
Yeah.
So the fact that they spent the effort to break it down means they still care about the arena. It's still in somewhere in their plans. But we don't know, at least, and we don't have a timeline, and we don't even know if they are going to build it back up or how they're going to build it back up. So it's very anxiety producing to be an arena player right now, I think. I mean, hell, Yetis aren't even in the arena anymore. Like, what could be a bigger sign that like just like hit the pause button on arena for a while, wait for the next expansion?
Yeah, I think your point is like sometimes not moving is going backwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for 4 years and change now, um, ever since we've really seriously gotten into the arena, that's what it's been. It's been a couple steps forward, a couple steps backwards, a lot of lateral movement here, a lot of experimentation there. But overall, when you look at where we are now, not much has changed, and that's especially in the gaming industry. Geez, not moving is taking a huge step backwards when you look at the grand scale of things. So that's kind of yeah, yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I don't know what is going to happen. Now, fortunately for us, BlizzCon's just a week away, so we will know more of what's happening. But it's entirely, I mean, it's likely, it's much more likely than not that no news relating to the arena comes out at BlizzCon. Um, Hopefully something does. That would explain a lot of things, actually, if there is arena news that they just don't want to announce until BlizzCon. But we'll see. I think the best thing that can come out of BlizzCon realistically is not that they do anything with Arena, but it's that they come out or they have plans to come out with it some relatively soon, like in the next month or weeks or maybe even 3 months, an entirely different like limited game mode for Hearthstone. Because I don't know, I've been around here now, it's what, 5-6 years. I feel like they've tried things, right? They went from not trying to trying things to messing up to trying something else to messing up, and now like, what are they going to do? Try again? Like, I get it, it's their jobs to kind of try again, no matter like how slowly. But especially with this breakdown of the bucket system, it really feels like they've gotten to the point where they're like, we were going a different direction with trying. Like, we were trying to appease the wrong people. We're trying to go in a direction that we are not qualified to do, or like we just couldn't pull off. And rather than bang our heads against the wall, let's do something totally different. And
Yeah.
curious what the totally different thing is. And I'm hoping it comes soon instead of just like leaving Arena in this kind of state and like breaking it down even further. But I don't know. It may not come next week. It may not come in the next expansion or even the next two expansions. And until then, we're just this is the most Limbo Arena's been in, I think, since they started doing anything to Arena at all. Like since you remember when they banned a whole bunch of cards in Arena?
Yeah.
Before that was a period of limbo where you're like, what's Blizzard gonna do in the arena? Nothing. What the hell? We're kind of back there now, I think.
Yeah, we have sort of gone full circle, right?
Yeah.
Where for the longest time they didn't do a single thing,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're doing stuff, but we're just like, wait, is this it?
It's
In
backwards.
terms of
It's like admitting that the stuff you did not like didn't matter, but like was not a good solution. It's like they give themselves a pat on the back for effort, but like they decided to dismantle it, right? So clearly
yeah,
they were not happy with it.
very true.
No. Okay. I want to end on something that's actually relating to the meta. By the way, somewhere in there was like, okay, whatever. So a deep fried meta. I want to talk about an actual meta point because I knew this episode was going to get more forward looking than the actual arena. And we always want to inject a little actual arena in here. So here's my question: deep fried meta, where we deep fry the meta. What's a 2/1 for 1 mana, like a 1-drop that's a 2/1, like a Murloc Raider, which is not in the arena right now. I don't know what is in the arena that's a 2/1, but I'm sure there's plenty of those cards. How do they function? Like, what's a Raptor Hatchling do? Grimscale Chum, that's the one. Thank you, Samson, in our chat. That's the one I see a lot. Grimscale Chum.
Okay, so you're saying on a high level, what is it? What does it do for you?
Yeah, what's it do for you? Why would you ever put that thing in your deck? Right?
Okay.
Because right now, like, why would you draft it? Because we're in a meta right now where you could do 1-drops. 1-drops aren't terrible, but you don't have to do 1-drops. You could totally just start on 2 and be fine. Like, why would you add a 2/1 into your deck? Like, obviously you do it if you're super aggro, but assuming you're like some kind of a normal-ish, mid-rangey kind of deck, you're not allergic to 2/1s, but you don't desperately need them either. What do you do? What is a 2/1 function? Like, whoa.
Sure. So let's look at it this way. Why do you put it in your deck? And kind of the subtext to that. And for anyone who asks, like, why would I put a 1-mana 2/1 into my deck? The subtext / footnote to that question is always because it can get pinged, right? Like the reason they're asking is the implication is like, well, why would I put it there since it can get pinged? So any answer to that question has to sort of address that first. So you see the downside of it already. A lot of classes can take away your 2/1, can take away this card. I mean, you're devoting a card to it. Can take that away without using a card, and that's always like, oh my gosh, I just lost a card. So really, what does the 2/1 do? Early on, what it does is it allows you to use your mana, and it allows you to get onto the board such that you have something to face your opponents with. The easiest, I mean, this is just like, it's like, oh, you eat food to live. This is sort
you
of like
put a
that
2/1 on the board, and like half the time if your opponent plays a 2-drop, it's going to be like a 2/2 or a 3/2, at least half the time. And then you get a trade. And the other half the time is going to be a 2/3, and you don't get a trade, but you turn the 2/3 into a 2/1.
So here is exactly what it does, even in sort of the worst case scenarios. And I think one of the worst case scenarios, and one that people hate being in, because I know that when I was just beginning Hearthstone, I was just like, well, this is the dumbest kind of situation I'm in, is if you're player 2 and you have that Murloc Raider, right?
Yep.
Or if you have, whatever 1 mana 2/1 tournament attendee,
Player
whatever you like.
one is a mage, passes on the first
Yeah.
turn. It's your first turn now. You play the Murloc Raider. The mage uses their hero power.
So I bring up this example because even in this situation, now as the pro numero uno player that I am, washed up streamer as well, um, a lot of the times I really don't mind that, and I'm actually pretty happy because what a 2/1 does in this situation on a big picture level is it boxes in expectations. What you are doing is you are saying, okay, if they are to do that, and by that I mean ping your 2/1, cool. I know the universe that we're operating in, and then the next turn I get to still, dictate the like what I put onto the board first, and I get to temper like I get to understand this game. Nothing crazy happens. And if my opponent tries to do something crazy, right? Well, at least I have 2 attack onto the board. And that's so important there. Just putting out tempo, even tempo that can, quote, easily be removed, as long as you're putting it out there in order to box your opponent in and try to prevent the huge swings and the upside your opponent can do. That's great. If a 2/1 is able to do that, that is fantastic. I have used that 1 mana effectively. I have used that 1 card effectively. And even if they take that away, what the 2/1 gives to me is a guarantee. It gives me kind of protection, like
Yes.
preemptive protection, such that things don't get out of hand. And that is worth it for me. And I will make up that difference in that 1 card later on. Maybe even just, in 2 turns, I'll be able to make that up later on from me being on the board, first after that, or just me getting better trades because of that. And that's something that a lot of people either misvalue or don't value at all. And I
Yeah.
will say this, the value of that 2/1 becomes exponentially higher if you have a game plan. If you have no game plan and you're just tossing cards, that 2/1, the sacrifice was in vain. You did not use the tempo gain from that 2/1 effectively, and it won't be remembered in the history books. It will have died for nothing. It will have died on your way to like a 1-3 arena run. Feels bad, man. But if you use it effectively, that 2/1 a lot of times disproportionately affects your win percentage. I think some people would be really, really surprised if, for a lot of my games, they might think, oh, it's because the Fireline's Portal won it for you on turn 7. Oh, it's because you high rolled on this RNG effect on turn 8. Or, oh, it's because you got that really good trade on turn 6. That all started because I put down the 2/1 and they weren't able to put out their 3/2. They had to ping my 2/1. And because of that, it just started the snowball. So um, that's a long winded way
Yeah.
of answering the real question that you were asking, because you were asking a question, but the real question was, why the hell am I playing this thing where it can get killed off for free?
Yeah. So I'm gonna focus in right now on the killed off for free part, and then I'm gonna wrap it back up onto like some fundamentals about what the 2/1's doing. So go back to the situation with a mage. Take rogue out of the equation. Rogue screws everything over. If you're facing a rogue, the 2/1 is like terrible, just terrible. No matter what happens, like if you roll that 1 in 9 chance you face a rogue, well, fine, this card is terrible. That's why we don't tell you to take 2/1s like as a highly rated card, right? These are not 3/5s. Sorry, these are not 3 mana 3/4s, right? They're not Yetis. They're not rated anywhere near that high because of that reason. But if the mage is using a hero power, that's 2 mana to your 1 mana. That's like you using a coin. Now you're not in full control of it. The mage is. If the mage has like a 2/3 or something, the mage could easily play the 2/3, and good players would play the 2/3. But most players would just use their hero power instead and lose that tempo. Because if you play a 2/3, you still end up with a 2/1 on the board, right? That's basically you asking your opponent, hey, would you exchange your card for a 2/1 for this tempo. And your opponent's like, no, I'm a mage. I have a free ping. Right? You see how it begs the question? Like, is a 2/1 on the board worth it? Well, if you're a mage that wants to ping the 2/1, you think it's not worth it because you think you're getting a good deal removing the 2/1, which is why you don't play your 2/3 that then becomes a 2/1 that your opponent can ping, right? On the other hand, if you are like a player who cares about tempo at all, or you have a deck that can use tempo at all, and most decks can use tempo, you have to be a pretty controlling deck to not be able to use tempo. Then you're like, no, this is great. Like, you played a 2/1. I know I can ping you for free, but I'd rather have a 2/1 on the board myself because I know the value of a 2/1 in the early game. So in almost all situations facing a mage, you're basically playing a coin in the early game. And a coin is not the best card in the game, but a coin in the early game is a pretty damn good card. Like, Hearthstone thinks the people at Blizzard have tested this a lot and they think a coin is a coin, right? Like, it's actually a card. They used to have a card called Innervate. I mean, they still do. But now Innervate, like, it used to give 2 mana, now it just gives 1. Because it's now just a coin. Because they were like, 2 mana is a little too overpowered. Right? So, again, you're not getting the best deal in the world, but you're getting okay stuff. If your opponent can't ping, then you have the best deal in the world. And why do you have the best deal in the world if your opponent can't ping? And your opponent often can't ping. One of the things that I found very interesting about this current meta is that most of the time you're not actually facing someone with a ping. I thought like, oh, clearly you're going to face a lot of people with pings because they can pick their hero power, and 3 hero powers ping. But no, most times I'm facing like a warlock or like a warlock hero power or a priest hero power. It's something like I faced warrior hero powers a ridiculous number of times. I can't even like just because I guess weapons are so good that people just want the weapons that they don't even care if the warrior hero power comes with it. But if you end up facing an opponent without a ping, here's what happens, and this effect is so huge. You're looking at it as, oh, I get to spend 1 mana to deal 2 damage at a later turn. That's pretty good. Maybe I also get 2 phase damage in there, right? Like, it's a decent card. But how you really should look at it is, because you're playing a card on curve, if curve stone works normally, so if normal things happen and both you and your opponent do normal things for a while, by turn 8, you would have eaten one of your opponent's minions. So it would be 2/1 into 2/3. They have a 2/1. You now have your 2/3. Then you have another 2/1. Then they have a 3/4. Then they have a 3/2. Then you have a 3/4. It hits their 3/2. You now have a 3/1. Then they have a 4/5, which kills your 3/2 and becomes a 4/2. Then you have a 4/5, which eats that and becomes a 4/1, etc., 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 etc. When you put that 2/1 on the board, if the rest of her curve stone works out, you end up with an extra 8/1 on turn 8. Just an 8/1 on the board on turn 8.
Yeah.
And you've also prevented an unspoken amount of damage to your face. Because every time they have to be the one trading into you.
I think that this is really important. It's like that one card, that little inkling of tempo advantage that you got at the very beginning, it bought you 9 stats eventually, right? And 9 stats is actually it's a huge card. I mean, that's a Yeti we're talking about now, like a oddly distributed Yeti, but it's a Yeti nonetheless. You've gotten a Yeti, and like you said, you've prevented a huge amount of face damage. And I think of it like sort of savings over time, right? Investing over time as well. Like a lot of people don't realize, sort of, you invest $100 right now and you just put it into the market, and then 30 years down the line, that's worth a ton of money. Assuming that the world doesn't collapse. And the same thing here as well. So important life lessons in Hearthstone and for your retirement savings at the same time. And it's hard to see that, right? Especially in something like Hearthstone, in which wacky effects happen. I don't know how many times you get Firelands portaled in real life, or they pull off some crazy legendary combo against you in real life. I don't know what the analogy is there. However, it's hard to see in both because it seems so distant. But small effects at the beginning of Hearthstone a Hearthstone game or your investing career. And then at the very end, when you take out for retirement slash the end of the game, no matter who wins, that 2-1 has made a huge impact most of the time.
Yeah. In fact, a 2-1 for 1 mana, if you get it on turn 1, is an absolutely unfair advantage. It's like super premium. It's like worth 200 points on the tier list, if not more. The only issue is that you don't always get it on turn 1, right? Like, it would be a broken card if it also read, you're guaranteed to start with this card in the opening hand. Like, if there was a legendary that was just a 1 mana 2-1 and said you're guaranteed to start with it in your opening hand, and you are in the arena, that's an insane card. I don't know how good it would be in constructed, but in the arena, that's like always pick, and then don't pick other 1-drops. It's that's just how broken it is. So the fair part about a 1-drop, because these kind of like high swing card, like you don't think about it 1 mana 2-1 as a high swing card, but it's a really high swing card. Because when it comes out early, and when it comes out against opponents with no ping, it's insanely game winning. When it comes out against opponent with pings, it's a fair card. When it comes out either against rogue or later on in the game against an opponent with a ping, it's a pretty bad card. So that's the definition of a high swing card. People don't think about it that way because very rarely do bad players beat you with it, even if they get it on turn 1. Because in order for it to make that swing, you have to progress the curve stone repeatedly throughout many turns, which involves many turns of not making a serious mistake. Which, screw bad players, like average players can't do, good players can't even do. Like, you get a 5-win players, and you tell me that player has made the correct decision 5 turns in a row from turn 2 all the way through turn 7, and I'm gonna say that happens maybe 1/5 to 1/4 of the games that 5-win player plays it.
Yeah.
And so the 1 mana 2-1 on a non super aggressive deck is actually like a really high skilled but also high swing card. So you don't want it because it's high swing, but you also kind of do want it as a good player because it's also high skill. It kind of like balances it out, right? So it's actually very well, I mean, I would say well designed, but I don't think anything really went into the design of the card. It's just how the fundamentals of an attacker chooses Hearthstone like card game works out, and it's really elegant. It's really elegant in that way.
Yep.
Cool. That's deep
Cool.
fried meta. You want to end this on a question from the goat? I have a question from the goat.
We talked about it.
Second
remember?
question from the goat.
Oh, okay.
Merps, what are you doing this weekend?
Just traveling a little bit, nothing major. Getting married. That's it.
Yeah. We're gonna head out to Arkansas and eat some good food, and then Merps is gonna get married, which is apparently no big deal. I'm like, hey, so what are you doing after you get married? And he's like, I don't know, going home back to back to DC. I'm like, oh, what are you gonna do when you get home? And he's like, I don't know,
going back to work at some point. That this is just maybe do some D2 runs.
Yeah. By the way, if you're doing a D2, wait, are you gonna be back on Tuesday night?
I believe so.
Okay. Oh, I don't think I have enough time to put it together. Whatever.
Sad.
Yeah, because I'm like, we could do a D2 run on Tuesday night, but by Friday we would already be in the new meta, and I'd want to play the new Hearthstone meta rather than D2. But if you're a fan of the stream, we may be doing some D2 hardcore untwinked runs, and you will get a peek into what our lives were like when we were in college / right after college / high / just huge dorks.
It was interesting.
I don't know, like, to this day, I don't know why we played that game in that way so much. Like, there was one summer vacation that I remember. It was like a summer vacation in college where people are either doing things to bolster their resume or doing really, really fun things. But I think we were, like, broke and, or just, like, not feeling it. But we were both back in our hometown of East Brunswick, New Jersey. And we would just like have LAN parties essentially of just us two for like 5-6 days out of the week for like 2 months straight and just played Diablo 2.
Yeah, it was very memorable. It was a great time.
Lot of Burger King runs.
A lot of Burger King runs. Man, you love their mozzarella sticks.
Mozzarella sticks were okay. They're not good now that I know what good mozzarella sticks taste like. But at that point in my life, I had not had good mozzarella sticks. The best mozzarella sticks I had at that time were like Olive Garden mozzarella sticks, and the Burger King ones are not that far off from the Olive Garden ones, and they're way cheaper. It's like a fifth of the price.
It was like a fifth of the price. They were super duper cheap. Yeah. What did I get? I think I got like the rodeo cheeseburger a lot.
Ah, rodeo cheeseburger. Such a blast from the past.
It was pretty good, man.
But yeah, we may be bringing some of that in November. We'll see. Merps has already done a stealthish kind of D2 run.
I don't know if it was really that stealthish. I tweeted it out.
Okay, but it was on your account. It wasn't on the go.
It was on my account.
That's stealth. Whenever you use the Merps account to stream, that's
super stealth.
It's not only stealth. I'm sure Twitch was like, "What is happening? Why is this person streaming?"
I know, right?
Why is this super lurker streaming all of a sudden?
Super lurker streamer.
This guy just lurks on the Grinning Go channel all the time.
Crazy.
All right. So that's what's happening on the weekend. Wish Merps congrats. The wedding is Monday night, so I will be tweeting out some pictures. I think. Am I allowed to tweet out pictures?
I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see if I'm allowed to tweet out pictures. I'll tweet out like pictures without other people at least.
Yeah. Okay.
But so stay tuned, and yeah. That's anything else you want to add before we end the Lightforge?
That's it.
All right. Until next time, this is Abwikta.
This is Merps. See you guys.